Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for checking out The Luttrell Show, building businesses, bars, and brands. My name is Jason, and today we're talking with the co-founder of Lion & Lamb Communications, Rachel Harrison. Rachel manages a boutique PR agency that handles the messaging and the communications for some of my favorite things, like think Mr. Black, think Mr. Paradise, think Blackened. So Rachel's going to tell us about her agency and how she built it and how she's managing through the COVID-19 crisis. Please welcome Rachel Harrison. All right, Rachel, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you run a company called, what's your title at Lion & Lamb?
I guess co-founder is probably the right way to put it. My business partner, Melanie Weitzner, and I started Lion & Lamb Communications in 2014.
And what do you guys focus on?
Public relations and integrated marketing, and primarily in the hospitality industry. So hotels, restaurants, bars, countries, airlines, liquor brands, mostly hospitality. We also, we work in design as it pertains to hospitality. So interior designers and such. We'll work with artists, from graffiti artists to tattoo artists, to print and sculpture and all of that, musicians. We work with all of those, sometimes from a straight PR perspective, but primarily to loop them in to partnerships with our hotels, restaurants, bars, airlines. So we have a lot of experience in kind of the arts and such, but primarily hospitality.
If Banksy was one of your clients, could you tell us?
No, but I have heard a lot more people know who he is than he would admit. We worked with like an artist agent, and I was like, so what if I wanted Banksy? And he goes, Rach, I can get you Banksy. He's like, that's not hard. I know Banksy, but He goes, yeah. And I was like, okay. And then, but he goes, but you're going to pay him $100,000 and he's going to paint what he wants to paint. And that could just be a dot on the side of the building. He's like, we all know who he is, but you can't really control what he does. And I was like, oh yeah, I can't afford to take a chance on Banksy.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. So you mentioned earlier that you kind of came from humble beginnings. Is Lion & Lamb your first business, or did you have other businesses before that?
First business that I've owned. I haven't, other than that, I've been working for other wonderful companies. I've loved my history, but this is the first company that I've owned outright. That sounds
extremely challenging. And when did you guys found the company? 2010, was it?
2014.
2014. Okay, so that's I'm 6 no math
years
late.
Ago.
Oh my god, 6 years ago.
It'll be 6 years officially in August, I think. Yeah.
So before you started the agency, what did you know about like client acquisition, like just business processes? Like where was the learning curve? Where were the hardest parts to figure out before? Because it's like ready, aim, fire in a lot of situations. You know, what was the hardest thing you had to learn in the shortest amount of time?
I think the hardest thing to learn was the actual running a business portion. I love public relations in general. Public relations is my heart, my baby. I love telling stories. I love building up small businesses and being a part of their growth and seeing them succeed. That is my passion. But actually running a business from, HR and accounting and accounts receivables and insurance and all of those things was very complicated and challenging to learn. But we did it because, it's step by step. It's not like you have to learn every single one of those in day one. You just kind of, it's one day at a time, it's one step at a time, and you just keep learning new things. And when you're starting a business, it's pretty exciting anyway. So learning what you need, all of a sudden, the first time we signed on a big, massive hotel brand, we signed on Hyatt. And they were like, you need this insurance and this insurance and this insurance. And I had no clue what that was.
Oh, I know that. I know that whole song and dance.
It's like learning all of those things, even like learning, like you need to purchase like auto insurance. And I'm like, but I'm never going to be driving to your hotel and just kind of like working out, what you really need and what you can argue with, and figuring all that out was painful. And then human, HR is hard from so many different levels. I love my team more than anything, but figuring out, how much of your health insurance are you going to pay for? How much, are you going to match their 401k? What are the perks that people care about? What do they not care about? What will help you retain employees? Learning that type of HR stuff is,
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's actually kind of fun because retention of team members is one of my biggest things. But it's also, it's a massive learning curve.
Yeah, no, I mean, aside from the compliance part, it's so remarkably complex, like how to hire people, how to fire people. So what is your head count these days? I know it's a really weird time. Did you lose anybody for COVID?
We did. Pre-pandemic, we were 30 people. So, yeah, now we are, oh gosh, where are we now? I think we're at 12 in total, including my business partner and myself.
Mm-hmm.
That was the hardest, probably the hardest moment in my professional career. Were the initial weeks of the realization of what COVID was going to do to our clients, to ourselves, to our employees, to everything. That was probably the hardest part of my professional career.
Yeah, I mean, it's smack dab in the middle of the hardest hit verticals from COVID-19. Hospitality, products, it's crazy. It's crazy. If you don't mind me asking, who hung on? Who you still got? Who you still working with?
As far as names or titles, or
Like the brands.
Brands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Sorry, clients.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah, I would like the names and social security numbers of all your staff right now, please.
I was like, wait a minute, what? We have so our client Dante is holding on. I mean, and they're knocking it out of the ballpark. They are just so incredible. They were able to pivot their business, I would say, in 24 hours. Lyndon and his wife Natalie, who are the two owners, the two major principals, they saw what was coming, and they were reading up every day and knew like the new liquor laws and the new this and the new that, and they pivoted so fast. It was fascinating to see their brains work, and they're doing very well. I mean, obviously, they're not doing as well as they were before, but they're hanging on, and they're doing so much for their employees and so much for their teams. It's wonderful to watch. So
one thing I really like about what Dante is doing is that they are delivering the Dante experience to go. And it's like,
Absolutely.
I think that's kind of the big differentiator between what a lot of people are doing. They're like, I'm just going to put our existing service offering into a quart container, and then here you go. It's not like that. They delivered like the full package, which I think is the key delineator between success and failure in this time.
100%. Even their branding, it's just, you get a bag and you get this beautiful kind of glass, cocktail with the Dante branding on it. And it's, I think it just reminds people of hospitality, and it reminds people of the experience. If you can't get it inside of Dante, you can really take it home. And there's a lot of people that are doing it wonderfully, but maybe they couldn't pivot as fast. And so they're not doing the branding and the 100% of the experience. But I think Attaboy is doing a great job in massive, amazing Attaboy style. One of our clients, Mr. Paradise, is doing a fantastic job. They're so funny and tongue in cheek. And so I think they're bringing their branding. There was one menu where they did it kind of themed to movies. So, you could buy I think it was like the green slime cocktail and everything for Ghostbusters, and it was like made with pandan. So it was like, this green. And then there was one that was themed to Tiger King, and it was like a bottle of like cheap tequila. Yeah, it was a bottle of cheap tequila and raw meat for grilling.
Okay. All right.
And I'm just like, you guys are, and that's like, Mr. Paradise's branding is tongue in cheek and funny. Like, I feel like they brought fun back to bars. So now they're bringing fun to your home. So we have some bars that have done a great job. We have a few hotels left, Eastwind in the Catskills. And they're doing some fascinating things, creating safe spaces during COVID, and some guidelines that I won't get into. But what they're doing from a hospitality perspective, I think is fascinating. most of our liquor brands are still around.
Hmm.
And that is wonderful. We launched a brand during COVID. We launched Abasolo Mexican corn whiskey during this
Whoa.
time. Yeah. And, you know, our, our, our initial thoughts were, hey, we can do this. You know what I mean? We have a captive audience. There are tons of writers out there who want to try new things, who are still thirsty for knowledge, no pun intended. And, let's give them that opportunity. But we didn't know it was going to be successful. We thought it was, but you never know. And this brand launch was incredibly successful, and we are over the moon. And so is our client, which makes me happy.
That's great. I have a vintage bottle of Mexican bourbon from, I think, the 30s or 40s. I'll show it to you when we're done. But
I would love to see that.
Yes, it says bourbon on it, which is weird because obviously it can't be bourbon. But
Can't be, yeah.
But I was going to ask you. I think people don't really understand what goes into accelerating or amplifying a message for a brand or a business, but you seem to be incredibly good at it. I mean, you are incredibly good at it because I keep on hearing about all your stuff, and it's not from the direct emails. It's from, I just hear people talking about, and the through line has always been Lion and Lamb, that you guys are, just really pushing message, like really good messaging. So what is the process of onboarding and servicing a restaurant or bar client? Like, how does that work?
Restaurant and bar. Well, let's go for Mr. Paradise. Let's start there and kind of talk about the examples. I think we were talking to Will Wyatt, who was so incredibly creative. He gave us a walkthrough of the space probably about 6 months before. And, I think there is something special about bar owners, restaurant owners, brand owners that have a vision. And it's actually rare to have a really fully baked vision. And he had everything from the cartoon characters on his menu and the tongue-in-cheek offering, and then even kind of working with the interior designers as far as the actual design of how he wanted people to interact. And that was amazing. And then, he was also he wanted to create a high-end experience, but he didn't want people to have to wait 15 minutes for a cocktail. So there was a lot of pre-batching. There was a lot of kind of making it, putting it, and then freezing it, like the martinis that he's just pouring out of the freezer.
For the mise en place nerds out there, you got to go check out Mr. Paradise. It's pretty amazing. I went on that same walkthrough 6 months before they opened too. Like and like the local governments are assholes, but yeah, no, it's definitely a place. So please carry on.
Well, so I think, when we were talking to him, he had this passion for everything that he was doing, which was great. Right. But, it's about putting together those messages and having it make sense. So, we talked with Will and we talked with our team, and we just said, you know what, it seems like you're just trying to bring fun back to the bars. And I was like, this is a trend. And of course, this is a year and a half to 2 years ago, whatever. But we're like, this is a trend that's happening. You see people where, listen, there is a place for those cocktail bars that are so esoteric and so incredible and experimental. And it's don't talk to the person next to you. And, and you're waiting 15 minutes for a cocktail. And it's almost like a religious experience. And I love those places. But it was really nice about 3-4 years ago to see bars coming back with the idea of fun behind it. And I like that. And that's what it felt like with Mr. Paradise, is they wanted to bring fun back to the bar. Perhaps a little tad of debauchery, a giggle, a laugh, a fun time. Maybe you're making out with somebody in the back, because, you met some beautiful girl, and, it is what it is. And I just, so the stories that we came up with for that were bringing fun back to the bars, but also the bringing super duper high-end experiences of cocktails in 2 minutes instead of 10 minutes. And of course, Will wanted to be incredibly careful of that messaging because he didn't want to insult his mentors and his friends and his peers, and he's like, I love those bars. I love the 10-minute cocktails. And I was like, I know you're not, we're going to message this so that you're not insulting them, because those are wonderful places. You're doing something different. And it's an evolution in another direction. And so we were able to all come to an agreement about what our story was and what our message was, and then get it out there into the world. And so, in my mind, I felt that these were relevant stories. And thank God the media agreed. I would say 99% of the time, I'm usually I'm okay. Like, we talk to enough media, we talk to enough people, talk to enough people in the industry on a daily basis that we're able to get a decent feeling of the way things are moving and what people care about. And we try to take those things that we learn from our conversations, and we try to kind of link them with our clients and to have them make sense. So I think we did a good job with that.
I would agree. So you've been in the game long enough to see how a dramatic shift in how people consume media, and and it's changes all the time. Once COVID hit, it changed again. Like everybody started going live because they were bored. And how do you in the attention economy? How do you break through the clutter and get your messaging to the right place at the right time?
I think it's different with every client. If we can just go back to kind of what I've been doing all of these things. I think what's fascinating is we have been telling our clients for years, create your own content, create your own, maybe it's on your website, you have a blog entry where you can talk to your consumers. You can say what you want to say. And that takes a lot of work, and it takes budget. And it takes, when everybody was so busy and business was going along just fine as it was, nobody really needed to do that. And now they do. So now they're creating their own channels. They're creating their own blogs. They are creating their own content. Everything is now turned on its head, where a big portion of the marketing mix is now going digital. And it's something that we all probably should have been doing years ago, but we didn't have the time. And we didn't have the budgets, and we decided not to put our money and budgets there.
Yeah. Whenever somebody says we don't have the time, they're just saying it's just not a priority. And that's fair. That's totally fine. But never has media production and that media creation been so democratized. I mean, that what you can do on your cell phone is fucking astonishing. It's astonishing. Yes. And I think that people don't really understand that you don't have to, that a lot of people, they don't complete the transmission of a message because it's not perfect, but done is better than perfect. And it's like, I just got into this stuff recently about, you can talk in your phone into transcription. So I use Otter now. Have you ever heard of Otter? And it's it's changed my whole thing. So I do my journal on it. I do everything on it. And I can spit out huge, long form business ideas and then send it to a virtual assistant to say, hey, process this in a certain way. And it becomes a blog post. But yeah, I mean, if we're not leveraging the powerful computer in our pocket, especially right now, hopefully some of that stuff will stick a little bit through after the bars and restaurants open, which is apparently happening pretty soon. So I was just reading the news with Elaine last night, and several states are starting to open up. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on both,
that? I think it's positive, and I also think it's scary. I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. How do we do it? How do we do it safely? Can we all hang out together again? I think there's so much news out there, and there's so much conflicting information that none of us really knows. And I think, we all want to go back to our bars and restaurants, but can we do it safely? I think we just have to weigh so many different things. When all of this started happening, I went to, it was about a week before all of the bars and restaurants closed. And I can honestly say that our initial strategy was get our bars busy. Like, oh my God, everything's dying. What can we do? And, we were changing our strategies from, let's say for our hotels, for example, we were changing our strategies from being airline markets to being drive markets, because that's kind of where we thought it was going to go. And it kind of did for a little while, but the bars and restaurants, we were like butts and seats. And then it was about a week before the bars and restaurants closed, and I went out for the first time in a few weeks, and I went to an opening that will, not an opening, well, maybe it was an opening or a launch that shall remain nameless. And at first there were 10 people in there and I was like, this is safe. This is good. This makes me comfortable. And then an hour and a half later, there were 80 people in a very small bar and I was shoulder to shoulder. And I'm like, this is less comfortable. This is a little scary. And then there were people doing laybacks with speed pourers where mouths were touching bottle to bottle.
Yikes.
And I was like, this is not good. We are not, I mean, God, this sounds horrible. But I'm like, we are not smart enough humans to do this. Like, we can't do the 50% occupancy.
That is totally
right?
fair to say. Yeah. And we're being such social animals. It's like, even if we are mindful of the rules, that doesn't mean that habitually we're not going to break them. I just feel like unless we're forced to distance each other, then any measures are not going to make any sense. I don't know. I just feel like we're all just in this place where we've been stewing around in our apartments for so long that we're going to forget that we can't hug our friends.
Yeah.
I mean, we had friends over a week ago, and it was just so bizarre because like we weren't in the same. Like, we're all outside the whole time. We were socially distant, but it was just like still bizarre that our very close friends, we couldn't see their faces and we couldn't high five.
Hug
we couldn't
them.
hug. It's just weird. Yeah.
I know. I went to my first social distancing. I don't know if I would say party. There were 5 of us. And the person who invited me over is another bar owner who's very well respected. And he's also very safe. And he said, Rach, I'm inviting over a handful of people. We are all sitting at tables in the backyard of my bar and everybody gets their own table and we're all 6 feet apart and you have to wear masks. And I was like, wow, you guys, all right. Good job. So I thought that was really fun, but it was nice to see other people. That was one of my first times actually seeing some of my friends. And although I haven't touched another human being in 12 weeks, which is really weird, it was really nice being in a backyard. I mean, you've got a baby and a wife, so you've got hugs, and I don't. I did get a dog though. So.
Oh, you got a puppy. Oh, you got a quarantine puppy.
I have a quarantine rescue dog who's a 1.5 years old, and I hit the jackpot. I mean, she is like ridiculously cute, so well behaved, loves other dogs. I can't even believe how lucky I was. I hit the quarantine rescue dog freaking jackpot.
Hopefully she is all over your Instagram so that people can see how cute your dog is.
She is.
Well, sorry, go for it.
Well, I was going to say, I think, after I went to that launch event where I saw people doing speed pours, I think, I started to think about the safety of New York City and all of these things. And also looking at the history of Italy and China and what the world was going through back then. We sent out an email to all of our restaurants and bars and said, hey, we know our first inclination was to get you tons of press and to get butts in seats. And upon further reflection, it is Lion and Lamb's recommendation that you close your doors to help be a part of the efforts to eradicate this virus. And most of them kind of called me personally or emailed and they're like, yeah, we agree. We get where you're coming from. We're all feeling the same place and this is going to be hard. This is going to be really heartbreaking for all of us, but yeah, we all got to do this. And, I knew that by me sending out that email, my business partner and I were immediately going to lose 1/3 of our clients within 24 to 48 hours. But we just kind of felt like it was the right thing to do. And I want more than anything to come out of this having done the right things, coming out of this with integrity, instead of just trying to do everything to kind of save my business, which is obviously important. But I think being safe and coming out of this with integrity is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I feel like this is, that's a very difficult thing to say to your clients is that, I can understand it must have been hard to hit the send button on that one. But I feel like it's also an opportunity to kind of rebuild your business in the image that you wanted it to be ideally, or like, rebuild it in a way that it's brand new. Like I'm changing everything that I do. I don't do, I don't do bar and restaurant consulting anymore. It's just,
what are you doing? How are you
I'm doing,
expanding?
I'm kind of zooming out a little bit to operations and management consulting. So I'm focusing on entrepreneurs and startups to help automate and systemize their business, document their processes, and really get them organized. So I'm really excited about that. But my first client is a catering company. Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's like I've been building my company for the last 10 years, and I'm a hyper nerd about. It's just been me for most of the time, and I'm a hyper nerd about like leveraging technology and software to do things that I don't want to do. And then whatever, then other things I'm like, I can hire somebody to do that for me. And that's been that's been really great for me to, kind of create the platform to scale. And that's kind of where my head has always been. So I was going to ask you about your kind of systems and processes. Like, how do you manage your distributed team?
Wait, how do I manage my distributor team?
A distributed team. So like the people that work for you, like where do they, like they're working from home, they're distributed.
I mean, public. Yes, my distribution. I was like, wait, but this is like a term I don't understand. PR is a weird animal. Technically, we don't really need offices to do our job. Our job is primarily email. It's there are some phone calls. You know what I mean? I mean, yes, we build relationships in person, which is not possible now, really at all. But it kind of weirdly is, because we're also doing Zooms. So we're doing tastings and desk sides and all of these things through Zoom. But how we're and also I got to tell you, like, my team is so stellar. They kind of manage themselves. I have team members who are passionate and driven, and I don't check in on them, very much. We have meetings and we do, I'm involved in strategy and creative ideation, and I'm on most of the calls with all the clients, but I am constantly impressed with everything that they're doing, and they do more than I could ever imagine. So, so they really are managing themselves, with me kind of as this weird umbrella human over them. But we do use Slack, we use email, we use Zoom. We're using all of those tools. I think those are the main tools that we're using to kind of manage ourselves and to make sure that we're aligned and communication is strong and flowing.
So you mentioned before that you were really interested in like staff retention, like keeping people for a long time. How do you manage the onboarding and like get people up to speed really quickly? And like, how do you keep them excited and interested in the work and managing themselves? That's amazing.
I'm very transparent with everyone. Most of our team knows how our business works in general. I probably let my team in on way more than any other PR agency, would let them in on. I'll let them know, all right, in order for a PR agency to be successful, their staffing levels need to be between this percent and this percent. Rent needs to be at this percent and this percent. In a lot of ways, I kind of open up my books and I say, this is, what we can afford for a raise. This is what we can afford here. Here are our current billings. Here are A&R reports, so that they understand that I'm not pocketing the money and, I'm a millionaire over here. I want them to understand what I'm putting back into the business, why I'm putting stuff back into the business, why they're making what they're making. I want them to understand that. I just kind of feel that I think in all of my past jobs, I didn't know what retainers we were making. I didn't know how much clients were paying us. So because I didn't know how much they were paying us, I was giving a client who was paying us $3,000 a month the same amount of work as a client who was paying us $15,000 a month. And when I learned that I had discrepancies in that, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Why aren't my bosses letting me know? Why aren't they managing the amount of work I'm dedicating to people? So when Melanie and I started our own company, we just kind of decided to be more transparent. And I think when you trust your team, and I think when you let them in, kind of like pull behind the curtain, they start to understand why things happen, which establishes trust in the reverse as well. They then trust us. So those are some of the things I do. I know my team really well. I'm, f- I'm friends, as much as a boss can be friends, you know what I mean? But I know who their families are. I know what they're doing on the weekends. And I think they know that I like them. They also know that I am tough. I'm a little insane. I am incredibly detail oriented and I'm demanding. I don't like when mistakes happen. I don't like when I feel like we've missed things. So my team knows, though, that I will tell them immediately, and they know what to expect from me. They know when I'm disappointed, but they also know that that disappointment is not personal. They know that it's completely business related. This is my company. I am passionate about it, and I need it to be top notch. And they know that the moment I say it, it's then forgotten. I trust that they've learned, and then we move on, and we're friends again. Well, we were friends the entire time. You know what I mean? So I
Hmm.
think I'm hoping that the honesty, the directness, I am certainly not passive aggressive in any way. Everybody knows exactly what I'm thinking at every single moment. That is probably a positive and a negative in a lot of different ways, but there's not really any surprises. I throw people into things, and I think that shows trust. Um, when I throw somebody into something that they've never done before, I hold their hand and I kind of walk them through it. And I say, my door is open and ask me any questions you want, but I want you to come to me with what you think you should do. Don't come to me asking me to solve your problems I'm not going to tell you what to do. I need you to come with me with what you think. And then we can go from there and we can kind of tweak it. So I think by throwing people into things, I think it's scary, but I think they feel empowered. And I think they feel like they learn and grow. I don't know if everybody feels this way, but when I was kind of learning in the PR industry, the only things that mattered to me were education and growth. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be the best of the best, um, and just feeling valued. I wanted to be respected. I wanted to be valued. Those are the things that drive me. So they're not the things that drive everyone else. But so I make sure that those are implemented. Education, growth, and value are given to every single person that I manage. But also, I think it's important to figure out what drives everybody else on your team. Is it money? Is it time off? Is it freedom? Is it a hands off approach? I think you have to kind of figure out what makes them happy. And if you can do that, and if you can implement it and give each person kind of those things, and I think people would be surprised to know that it's not that different person to person. But I definitely have people that are like, I just want 4 weeks vacation, and you're like, cool, take it, and but you also see that they're working 12-hour days, so you're like, cool. Anyway,
I
so
love
those are
I
some
love
of the
that
things.
approach. Yeah, I love that approach. It's like let people be the person that they want to be because they will eventually run your business for you. I mean, this is a model that in the bar world, like Trevor Fry does this, Bobby Hugel does this, where he hires operators. He doesn't hire bartenders, and so he trains them all elements of the business so that he doesn't have to manage his business. And I think that's a very very wise approach. I was going to ask you a question about whether your company whether Lion and Lamb was going to be just like a paycheck down the road, or if it was like an incubator. Like if you're incubating, like you're reinvesting like emotional, physical, and like thought capital back into the business, and you kind of answered that question already. So
Thank you.
what are your aspirations for your business? I mean, where do you see Lion and Lamb in 10 years?
Well, my aspirations 3 months ago are very different than my aspirations today. Today, what's interesting though? We had 30 employees. We had this big company. It was growing exponentially. I'm proud of the reputation we built. I'm proud of my team. Um, I don't know if I want a company that big in the future. I think I want it to be a little bit smaller. Um, and and just really tight and really good. The team members that we have right now are so amazing. I want them to stay with me forever. I want
Mm.
I want them to help me grow this forever. Like I hope I can continue to offer them chances to grow, and I hope I can continue to offer them like kind of learnings that I've had my entire life and offer them different opportunities to do that. And even if that means that maybe one of them goes, we have an agency and we have a representation in London, but maybe somebody goes and we really build up the London office, and then maybe, we build our LA office a little bit further. Maybe we build our Chicago office. So in the future, I'm thinking that we want little mini footprints in all sorts of different places across the globe. Ultimately, and this is a dream, and I don't even know if this is possible, but I would love to develop a branding wing. I would love to develop a massive kind of we do a lot of digital marketing, but a really focused digital marketing wing, maybe even an advertising kind of wing.
Huh. I mean, all the
Yeah, I would
copywriting's already there.
yeah,
It's
right?
not like you're not copywriting all day. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and it's a lot of agencies have tried to do this, but what ends up happening is they all end up working in silos, and they don't share their teaching, and they don't share their clients. They don't share. They end up kind of having their own teams and working on their own. And then the initial model, which was that they would all be working together and helping each other, kind of goes away. And I would love to see in the future if it would be possible to develop those things. But let's say we work with Absolute Elix. So if we have Absolute Elix from a PR perspective, but then we loop in all of these different tactics from our advertising agency and from our branding agency and from our digital marketing agency, we roll all of that into a proposal so that everything can be handled under one umbrella with all of the messages just really being equal. I think clients are having a hard time managing 10 different agencies. It's challenging. So if you can do it with one really creative, great one that you trust, that might be a way we want to go in the future.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't understand that the quality of messaging is oftentimes much the quality of the messaging and the quality of the way it's delivered, and the integration between the different media and and the communication strategy is like there are different agencies for each one of those things. And I've worked with clients, and I was just another agency, and they're just like, I don't even know what to do with this guy. Like, I don't even know, like, it's just another, remind me what you do here again. But if you have like a kind of a vertically integrated agency that does all those things, then it's a huge advantage. I mean, I think in terms of tools like that. I love all-in-one tools. So if
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is what I want, and then how it gets disseminated internally, it's all going to be part of the same workflow. So I think that that's a really smart approach, and it's not like people
Yeah.
don't need it. My God.
I kind of just want to be kind of like the nucleus. So like the nucleus kind of working with the client. And then we have all of these different arms kind of going out, but all of those arms kind of filter back into the nucleus, and then hand over this beautifully full baked strategy to a client. And they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And everything rolls up to their pillars and their missions and values and all of that. And then it seems like it might be a lot easier to control that way for everybody. And there's so many brands, have different agencies or just so many different ideas. And we have found that when we have the biggest success, it's when there is a singular idea and you just really, hammer home that idea. And just, for example, Dante, when Dante first launched, we had two kind of things that we really put out into the world. The one was owning the Negroni. It was just owning the Negroni. Number two, of course, was the history of Dante and really communicating the history of that 106-year-old building, not building, brand, and why it was important. And we told the story that was, I just loved the story, but it was these Italian immigrants handing the keys of that building over to Australian immigrants and kind of passing on the history and saying, hey, we did it. We loved it. We lived it. Now take it take it to its next life, and let's see what you can do. And I believe the owners of the original Dante and a lot of the old patrons are very happy with what they've done. But I think it was because of the beautiful way in which it was done, and not just from a PR perspective, but from a personal relationship type of perspective. But those are the two stories that we really kind of told. It was the Negroni and the history, and that was it for the first 2 years, was just those things. And I think it worked. And then we kind of shift our strategy, and we're like, okay, what's our next year going to be? And then what's our next year going to be? And, and of course that team is just so stellar and creative. So there was a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, no kidding. Did you want to talk about the new travel conference?
Oh, sure.
So can you tell us a little bit about the new travel conference?
Of course. So I have been working with some amazing people who are experts in the travel industry. There is Pavia Rosati from Fathom, Jack Ezon, who is a travel agent, travel curator from Embark and Beyond, Shivani Bora, who writes for the New York Times and a million other publications. Anyway, we're putting together this travel conference that is similar to, let's say, the physical travel conferences that were LA Miami or ITLM Cannes and all of these different things. And we're turning it 100% digital. So, but it's basically going to have the same format. So you can basically attend little 20-minute blocks to listen to individual hotels or airlines or countries and say, hey, what is New Zealand doing for the next 6 months? Or what is Eastwind Hotel and Resort doing for the next 6 months? And kind of figuring out their safety protocols, their new news, all of these things. So learning, or what is this bar doing? What is this restaurant doing? So you can do these private rooms. And then in the middle of the day, there are panels with some of the most legendary people in the hospitality industry are all joining these panels. You can go online to thenewtravelconference.com and see who signed up. And then at the end of each of the days, there will be happy hours. We're currently looking for people to host these happy hours and to come up with, creative ideation and whatever that is. But it should be great. It's really about talking to people about what the next 6 months is going to look like and all of the creative ideas that everybody's coming up with. I think if people can tune in and watch it, they'll be able to see that a lot of the ideas that have been put out there in a million different locations will all be consolidated into one place. And I think that is going to be helpful because there's so much information out there. There's so much news out there, and it seems very fragmented. So to be able to put that all in one place, in one space, I think will be very helpful so that other people can learn and develop their own strategies and their own plans to ensure their own success, because it's confusing right now.
Totally. And it's, there's just another weird psychological thing that things become more valuable once you pay for them. So,
and this costs money. This is,
yeah, no, I was going to say, no, I was going to say, but it's, it's a lot of focused and relevant information. And it's like, to get that kind of information, you can probably Google some of the things or some of the people and find it, but this is a very focused stream of information. I think that's very, very powerful. All right, Rachel, well, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. It's so great to hear about your company. And again, I really appreciate what you do for your clients. And thank you for taking the time. It is always a pleasure to catch up with an old friend, especially one who has built her own business and is still surviving and thriving after not only a global pandemic, but just the harsh reality of running a business in New York. And thank you for sharing your strategy and philosophy behind running a business. It's about being direct, honest, and straight to the point. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode talking with Rachel Harrison from Lion & Lamb Communications. Be sure to check out the show notes for a brief summary of the show and links to all the stuff that we talked about. A special thanks to Danny Messina for editing and post-producing this show. If you like the show, you might enjoy another project we started called The Industry Distilled. Reread the spirits industry news so you don't even have to. We go live on Thursdays. Head to industrydistilled.com or check it out wherever you get your podcasts. I like to keep these shows as short and dense as possible. If you have any thoughts, questions, or ideas, please be sure to reach out to me at Jason Luttrell on Twitter and Instagram, or search for Jason Luttrell on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm sure you'll find me. Or that other Jason who's a photographer. I'll find you one of these days, Jason Luttrell. If you got anything out of our time together, you can thank me by simply sharing this with another person. If you love the show, please hit the subscribe button, leave a rating, comment, or review on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Stay safe out there, and thank you for listening to The Luttrell Show.